morning, guys. It's very bright out here, so sorry I'm squinting. I'm out here in my greenhouse, but today I want to show you guys how I make rabbit dumplings. So we grow our own meat rabbits and everything here. I'm just going to show you a simple recipe that I use. Super easy, and it's really delicious. So if you have meat rabbits or you're thinking about getting them, I'm just trying to show you maybe one of the ways to cook them. But while we're out here in the greenhouse, I'm going to show you kind of some of the things that have sprouted up in our little raised bed, and I'm going to actually go ahead and plant a few more items. So let me get the camera turned around and I'll show you what's going on. Alright, so the easiest thing to see right here are some little spinach sprouts that I have. So I'm mainly growing, colder season stuff in here still, and trying to get like some salad greens and stuff going. But you can see those guys right there coming up. I have some lettuce. It's hard to see on camera, but there's some little baby sprouts. So nothing major yet, but we got some lettuce and some spinach growing here. I did plant some Swiss chard, which might actually, I'm not sure if that's a weed or if that's Swiss chard, so not gonna pluck that yet. So some of the things I'm gonna put in here today, have another type of spinach here, some couple different types of watermelon radish, some pak choy, and a couple of regular radishes here. So we'll see what all we have room for. I probably won't have room for all that, but I think first I definitely want to grow some of this Win-Win choy. It's a hybrid pak choy from Johnny's. It doesn't take up a ton of space, but I'm thinking it might take up a little bit more space than some of the radishes. So we're going to, I think that was a weed. We're going to plant some along this front row right here. And yeah, we'll just squeeze some in and see what we can get in here. Alright guys, so I'm back in the kitchen now. I'm going to start working on the rabbit and dumplings like I was talking about out in the greenhouse. But we're going to go ahead and get these going first. It's actually pretty simple. It does take a little bit of time because I like to simmer the rabbit down for at least an hour. Sometimes closer to 2 hours, just depending on how much time I have. So we're going to get this kind of cut up. I'm going to show you how I kind of disassemble the rabbit. We're going to season it up and get that browning in our stainless steel pot. And then I'm going to go from there. So as you can see here, I have actually 2 rabbits here, 3 carrots and some celery. It's just what I have. You can use more or less celery if you want. An onion, some homemade chicken stock. If you want to check out the video where we made this, I'll put a link in the description and you can click that little banner that's going to pop up right here. But go ahead and check that out. It's really good. If you make your own chicken stock, this is going to turn out way better. But it's okay if you don't have that. We're going to be using some kosher salt and pepper as well. So let's go ahead and get these rabbits parted out and browning in the skillet. This is one of our rabbits that we raised here. You can use wild rabbit if you want as well. This one's going to be nice white meat because it's farm raised. And so what you want to do is, if you see any hairs or anything obvious, you can go ahead and get those off. But you don't have to get too picky because, it take forever. But so anyways, we're going to start taking this apart, disassembling it. So we're going to grab this front shoulder and kind of grab, and you can actually cut this whole thing off without ever going through bone. You can do that on both sides. Just like that. Too easy. Same for the back. We're going to go ahead and take these back legs off. You kind of cut around all the way. Get all that. You can kind of find that joint, twist, and take that off without going through any bone also, and get some nice meat there. Alright, so let's do the other side. Nice hind quarter leg there. Alright, so now we have the torso. There's nice strips right here. If you've ever butchered a deer or anything, you know that they got those back straps. Well, bunnies kind of have that too. So we're going to go ahead and cut those out.
really, I guess, called the back loins, maybe. I believe people call that on the rabbit. So there is some silver skin. You can try and get that off. That way you're not chewing on that. So these are about the size of like a chicken tender or something maybe here. They are good battered and fried too. But for this, we're going to be slow cooking this whole rabbit. But we're going to take it apart first. Alright, so you can kind of see this membrane right here. We're going to go ahead and pull that off. And cut this along the spine. Right, and it looks like that belly flap meat's trying to come off with it. That's all right. Bunny bacon. All right, so that's your belly flap. That's good meat too. You can cut that. You didn't get it on this side, so we'll go ahead and cut that off the ribs and get this all cut up. All right, there's that. All right, so also like on a deer, you kind of have these inner tenderloins right here. So we're gonna cut those out. Might get a smaller knife for that. All right, in here, they're very tender, so once you get them out, once you get them loose, they'll kind of come out. Get whatever meat you can off of here, especially for this recipe, because all this meat is going to be getting incorporated with the dumplings and everything. So this is kind of like your chicken and dumplings, your traditional southern style, country style chicken and dumplings recipe, and it's good. So we're gonna get as much meat as we can off of here. So we're gonna cook all this in the skillet. I like to take the ribs out because what ends up happening is if you leave those in the back leg quarter area, you get a bunch of little bitty bones that you don't want to have to deal with. But you can cook this in there with it and it'll pull that meat off the bones, and the bones will make a little bit more into that stock. You can cook this with it too if you want, but I typically don't because it's not much meat and you end up finding bones in your food later on, so I don't really want to mess around with that. Well, let's just go back through the cuts that we have real quick. We have two nice hindquarters here. You got your front shoulders and legs here. Then you got your two back loins. You got that belly bacon. And then these inner loins are real small, but don't forget about those. And then we got this backbone piece we're gonna put in there. All right, I'm gonna get the other one cut up real quick, and then we'll get those salt and pepper seasoned. All right, so I like to go ahead and get this heated up, and I'm not gonna play with, I use bacon grease here, guys, to cook this. But you guys can use olive oil, or if you have lard or something else like that that you want to cook it in. But I like to cook this in bacon grease. The rabbit has very, very little fat in it, so this adds nice, just a little bit of fat to the dish and good little flavor. The seasoning is very simple. I just use some kosher salt. Don't really measure. I get a little bit. If I have a salt shaker, I'll use that, but I usually just kind of sprinkle it on there on both sides. And then we're going to do some fresh black pepper. Alright, next thing is we're going to be moving these into the pot. Let's get some of these flipped over. And add all these vegetables in here and let these cook for about 5 minutes or so before we add the broth. Those tossed in there nice. Grab it. Alright, so you want to get this to come back up to a boil. So we're going to turn that on high. And once it gets to a boil, we're going to go ahead and put the lid on and let it, and turn the heat back down and let it simmer for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Alright guys, so it's up to that boil like I was talking about. And give it a nice little stir real quick. And then we're going to put our lid on and turn that down to low right here. And we're gonna let this cook for about 1 hour. Alright, so we've had this cooking for about an hour. And we're gonna start taking some of this stuff out and letting it cool off a little bit so I can shred the meat off of it. And then work on making our dumplings. So for the dumplings, we're gonna be using just all-purpose flour. I'll use 2 cups. And this isn't really doubled, but this is what we're going to do for the, this is just going to be kind of a meatier chicken and dumplings probably. So 2 cups of flour, and then we're going to do half a teaspoon of baking powder. Get that in there. And kind of go ahead and whisk that together a little bit first. Alright, then we're going to take some butter, 2 tablespoons-ish. Alright, we're going to cube that up. You don't have to use a pocket knife, I'm just using what I got so I don't have to keep grabbing stuff. So you want to cube this up a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and toss that in there. And use our pastry cutter to kind of cut that in. So if you don't have a pastry cutter, just use whatever you got. You can knead it with your hands if you need to, but don't over knead it. So we're going to take a cup of milk. Get that mixed all up together. It's going to be kind of doughy, which is what you want because you want to be able to roll this out in a minute. Turn it here loosely now. Get a nice little ball, dough ball going. The next thing, you want to make sure you have a clean counter here. We're going to do a good amount of flour on the counter. Alright, get that on there. Alright, and then we're going to throw a little bit more flour on top of this. Kind of press that out. It's okay to use a lot of flour because that's going to actually help thicken up the stock and everything in here. So you want to kind of use more flour than you think you're going to use, okay? So we're going to go ahead and roll that out and then we'll cut the strips. This has cooled down a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and shred this with our hands and make sure we don't put any bones in there to the best of our ability. Alright, so we got the meat all shred up. We're just going to go ahead and put that back in here. And crank the heat up a little bit to a little bit like medium high. Get the meat in there. Alright, and then I have to go ahead and start cutting up my dumplings. I just use a pizza cutter for that usually. So just cut them into strips however wide you want them. They don't all have to look the same or anything like that because you're making chicken and dumplings, or rabbit and dumplings rather. Once this gets to boiling back, we're going to go ahead and put these in here and let those simmer for about 15 minutes. Alright, so we're going to put this back down to a simmer, lid on, for about 10 to 15 minutes. Alright guys, that is done. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my heat. and bring the pot over here off of the heat. Let you guys get a little look of that. Some good old-fashioned chicken and dumpling style rabbit and dumplings.